I don't know how far scaffolding can keep going.
Is a massive problem in scaffolding, and unless the industry evolves to at least meet halfway with the new generation of scaffolders or people coming into the industry, it's another problem that's also going to kill the industry. The only work you've got, one of them jobs comes over, you're done. But on the other side, social media also can really ruin people's mental health. Again, you could probably argue it's the bravado, it's the I'm a scaff, it's that macho-ness that has again been a negative on the industry.
DEFCON 1. DEFCON 1.
Welcome to the surgery. This week we have Jason Gibbs from England. He's a scaffolding consultant for Ultra Access. Jay, you all right?
Oh, mate, how you doing?
Yeah, not bad, not bad. So we're going to talk a load of bollocks about scaffolding as usual. And so let's ask the first question. Past your mind, back through the dim mists of antiquity, how did you start scaffolding? What was your journey?
You want the long or the short answer?
Whatever you want.
Well, I started off, got kicked out of school when I was 16. Started working for a company called Edgeguard that was owned by a man called Hayden Smith. You might have heard of him. And he owned a scaffold company called DR Scaffolding. I essentially started off in the yard, zipping around on a fork truck. Loved it, 16 years old. And from there I essentially got the opportunity to move into the office as an office boy. I did about 9 months or so in the office for the company called Edgeguard. Hayden Smith would always sort of pop his head in the door. We originally started off as a small series of small porta cabins, containers in Trad's old yard car park, which was at Bromley by Bow, which is not there anymore. We obviously sold it and the land's gone. From there we went to Silvertown. We shared a yard with Trad-S, which was Trad Systems. There's obviously a whole load of other things that happened, the reason why there was two Trads. I can go into that later on or whatever. From there, I essentially moved out onto site for Edgeguard, and we was installing. So what Edgeguard was, it was permanent and temporary edge protection for flat roofs. So it used scaffold tubes and key clamp fittings, which used like a little grub screw. And then from there, I ended up transferring across to Trad, Big Trad. I did about a year or so in the office, learning everything from estimating, health and safety, contracting, design, which I really liked. And then, I ended up getting moved out onto site as a scaffold labourer. It's completely useless, couldn't do anything. And then I just progressed from there. That was 27 years ago. I got my part 1 on Trad. Then I moved to another company called Rainham Scaffolding, which was a lot more local. By then my little boy had been born, so it was just a lot more better to be close to home because obviously he was only a baby. And then I progressed from there. Got my part 2, got my advanced, set up a scaffolding labour only company called Virtus Access, my baby. Put my heart and soul into it. My whole life went into it. Got to the stage where I was a gnat's arse. I was that close to supply and erect. I was close, and COVID happened. And obviously, all the scaffs I was using, they were getting 80% of their wages paid. So couldn't blame them really. They didn't want to come into work. There's obviously all the problems with COVID, all the issues and all the information going about how dangerous it was. And so a lot of the boys were like, look, I can get 80% of my wages from the government. I can sit indoors. So my little labour-only company collapsed. So after COVID, I set up Ultra Access, my new baby, as a scaffolding consultant. I've got various problems now. I've got 50% usage of both my arms. I can't straight or bend them properly. I'm in a lot of pain. My time as a scaffolder is over, unfortunately, because I loved it. Love doing it. and here I am now.
So physically, scaffolding's damaged you.
Yes. I mean, I've got arthritis in the family. So my granddad had really bad arthritis. He died when I was kind of little, but I remember him sitting there and his hands were like all folded in. My mum, she's getting old now. My mum's getting close to 70 now. She's got really bad arthritis in her hands. Funny enough, I've got bad arthritis in my wrists, but my elbows, is almost certainly done through scaffolding. So it's called, I can't remember what it's called now. It's Epicondus lateralitis, I believe it's called. I've done a publication on it. Essentially, it's where your cartilage and in your elbows, they start to fuse and they start to harden up, which severely, like, obviously, I mean, that's my arm straight. I can't, you know what I mean? I can't get it any straighter. It doesn't bend fully. So, yeah, essentially scaffolding, too much scaffolding has essentially ended my scaffolding career.
So now you've gone into the safety side, etc. You just mentioned the publications.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how many you did, but it was a year's worth, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And you've done them all for free, and they're all on your website. And what was the idea behind that? What was the motivation to go and do that?
I mean, obviously, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm quite prevalent on there. There was something that was mentioned by, funny enough, NASC. I got into a little bit of a ding dong with NASC. They mentioned something, and then I turned around and, if I can remember rightly, I said something like, "Well, that's great," but they were trying to promote something, and I was like, well, "That's great," but there's no career development or whatever. There's no you can't you get to your advanced ticket, you can't really go any further. Yes, there's opportunities to work as a supervisor, as contracts manager, so on and so forth, but they're very, very few and far between. They're not always available for scaffolders as such. Some scaffolders outsource their management roles to people that are managers rather than people that are scaffolders moving to management. So I did kind of I really went after NASC and I dug them out and I said, look, you need to be doing more, because without the scaffolders, there is no scaffolding industry. I mean, I saw that firsthand when I was on trad. They had, in their prime, in the late 90s, they had some good scaffolders, man. They're really good scaffolders. And they all left one after the other for various reasons, and the company declined. So my attitude is that without the scaffolders, there is no scaffolding industry. So you could have the best lorries, the best yard set up, the sexiest logo, the best operating systems. If there's no one physically capable or without the skills and experience to put the jobs up, don't fucking matter. Like you're in a lot of trouble. So essentially,
obviously, we've chatted before loads of times, and I think we're both of the same opinion that I don't know if it's worldwide, but definitely in the UK, tube and fitting, etc. The skills have been dying. We're in a skills decline, is where I think my brain's at, etc. And things like you're doing these publications, etc. Whether people read them or not, that's up to them. But you're trying to get information to the scapular as fast as possible, and the scapular isn't always receptive. We know that, but at the same time, it's like we've got a card system. It's supposed to make us into a proper trade, etc. Like we've both got feelings on the training. It's quite open. It's out there that we feel that the training needs a lot more input. You can't fail the course, and the skills have died. So we're at that sort of point where we both agree on that. And you've gone off and tried to do something yourself. What resistance have you met to that, or has it just been wholly supportive, or do you think it was a valuable use of your time? What do you feel now you've done that? It's in the open, it's free. What feedback have you had for it?
I think quite positive. I generally send them to a lot of people on WhatsApp to say, look, what do you think of this? I sent loads to yourself. I think it's been mostly positive. Essentially the whole reason why I started making them, there's 172 now. that I finished up with. I would have liked to have got it to a round number, but unfortunately not. But yeah, so I'd say 75% of them are scaffolding related. The other 25% is my own little spin on other topics. Essentially, they give all the information that I felt through my years as a scaffolder just wasn't being passed down to the younger generations, the fresh blood into the industry, and stuff that we don't get taught on the courses. Yeah, so that's it essentially. I think it's generally been positive. I don't find a lot of help from other scaffold companies. There's a few that openly support, which is like yourself and a few others. But there's a lot of others that don't do anything to help whatsoever, essentially, which is disappointing, as we're meant to be a brotherhood, as we keep getting told, but we're not, unfortunately.
Yeah, I bang that drum a lot. I do think we are a worldwide brotherhood. I just think it breaks down in certain areas, and unfortunately, one of the areas where it breaks down, it seems, is the UK for me. You know, like it's a very disjointed effort in the UK. You know, obviously we've got two trade bodies. They hate each other. They fight each other. I don't, you know, open discussion about things in scaffolding is very difficult because you've got the I'm hard, I take lots of drugs and drink type of attitude, and I'm hilarious. Then you've got some really good firms out there doing some amazing stuff, but it's not always received well because the negative attitude overrules it. You know, like we've discussed, the negative attitude with scaffolding in the UK is where it seems to be. You know, like you look on YouTube, etc., you'll have the talcum powder explosion because he's taking drugs, and then you look at the US and things, and they're proud to be scaffolders, and people in the Philippines and everything, they're putting out videos of them working, and they're happy. You know, and then the UK will say, "Oh, that's rubbish, that's you know, like, but it's not your country." But we're happy to bash. Yeah. And I think without changing that into a positive, I don't know how far scaffolding can keep going because you've got mast climbing, the enemy, it's up and coming. What's the future of scaffolding look like to you in the UK?
Well, yeah. I mean, you see it on Facebook. So you've got, I don't know which I haven't been on Facebook for a long time, but you see your different groups on Facebook, and you've got your scaffolding groups, got, I don't know, 100,000 members, and majority of them are foreign scaffolders, and all the comments will be from the British scaffolders, like, you sad cunt, like, what's the matter with you, and all these bollocks, and it's like, look, like, have a bit of pride in what you do. Very, very important job, scaffolding, you know? Have a bit of fucking pride in what you do. Very few people can do it. Very few people can do it. Very few people have got the balls to get up in the morning, graft their bollocks off with very little safety to stop you from falling, very little welfare facilities. I mean, they used to laugh at me. I worked offshore for a number of years, and they used to laugh at me. They'd be sitting there complaining about the free bacon sandwiches and the free sausage rolls. And I go, look, right, jump on a street firm. You know, if you want to have a shit, you've got to find a McDonald's, or you've got to find a bush and risk getting nicked. You know, that's the reality of the job. It's a very hard, unforgiving job. You know, and the people that do it, they should be proud of themselves, especially the fellas that have been in it 20 years. You know, it's like the French Foreign Legion. You know, it's 20 years of just slog and graft, you know, and hump 20 years. And there isn't that pride in British scaffolding. You know, I've said it a number of times. You have as well. There's no pride in the game. You see people from other countries. They're taking videos, taking photos of what they do. You know, they're over the moon at what they've achieved. British scaffolders. If you see my dog Charlie, he's in Stockport. Like, you know, I'm no angel. I'm no angel. That culture, it got hold of me for a number of years. It got hold of me, and yeah. It didn't make me better at my job. It made me worse. It turned me unreliable. It turned me into a fucking knob, basically. you know. And I think that there has to be, there's got to be more of a concerted effort from the powers that be upstairs, just to drum into every scaffolder in this country that they should have pride and they should be proud of what they do. Moving forward, if the industry can change and if people can get rid of the old tight t-shirt, armard, you know, all that bollocks, if they can put that to one side and save that for the Friday night with the little birds down the pub, if you want to be like that, fine. But if we can get people to Monday to Friday when they're at work, they're professional, they're polite, they're consistent in their work, they wear the right kit, they adhere to their RAMs, you know, they do the best work they can possibly do in the safest manner possible. If we can drum that into the majority of maybe some of the older fellas now, they might be a little bit too far set in their ways. If we can drum it into the younger blokes to think of it as a lifelong career rather than I'm just passing through, you know, because you never just pass through. Once you get into it, I'm only doing this for 6 months, yeah, and then 6 months becomes a year, becomes 5 years, becomes 10 years. Before you know it, you've been in it your entire adult working life. If the industry doesn't change, then tube and fitting is just going to go out the window, because you do need an element of skill to put tube and fitting up, and it'll be all system. The market will be flooded with cheap labour. That will drive the wages down, and eventually it will just collapse, and it will be very much like steeplejacking. We'd have 4 or 5 super specialist firms, and that'll be it, and the industry will be finished. That's what I think.
Yeah. I've very similar thoughts sometimes. Sometimes I'm really positive, and I think we're moving in the right direction, and then I think, are we really? Our dropout rate for the apprenticeships is horrendous. It's hard enough to get people to sign up, and we really need to look at why are they just dropping out? You know, they've gone to all the effort of signing up for apprenticeships. They might be in the yard, whatever, and then you look. I think it's something ridiculous, like 75% or something drop out in the first year. So, like, not only are we struggling to get people in, we can't even keep them once they're here. And yeah, times have changed. People are on their phones, etc. It's a very physical job. It's in the snow, the rain, the sun. I get all of that, but I think we market ourselves really poorly. I don't think we help ourselves. I've said it before, so I think we need a brand scaffolding in the UK, and we need to get into the schools and show a real apprenticeship. So we have an apprenticeship, but obviously it's not a college apprenticeship as such. It's not. You don't go to college for a year, 2 years to become a scaffolder. Now, is that because of a lack of funding, a lack of desire? The private centres, some of them do really good jobs, some of them don't. Yeah, same as everything. Some scaffolders are really good, some aren't. Some turn up every week, some don't. I get all of that. You know, like, nothing's perfect in the world, but we just don't get enough people in anymore. And maybe the system will help that. You know, we are moving more and more towards system. And about 40 comments will come up now about how it's crap, tube and fitting's the only system in the world, and blah, blah, blah. But system, you can do a lot in system. Yeah. System is worldwide. That's an argument for another day, like tube and fitting versus it, because I'm sick of it. I'm sick of talking about it. But what I am worried about is getting people in the industry. We've got a lot of people retiring. You've also got, well, you touched on earlier about career progression. I don't see a real career progression in the UK. You get your gold cards. What do you do after that? You've got people coming in as managers with degrees that have never scaffolded, who are then telling the scaffolders what to do. That's disjointed. Used to be that the scaffolders became estimators and QSs. Now you've got to have a degree, sort of thing, is the attitude for a lot of the firm. And they're taking the bright and best from college. Great idea, maybe. But in my world, it's like they haven't got the skills. They haven't got the boots on the ground feeling. They're then telling the scaffolder, get out in a day. Mate, I can't do it. It's got to be 2 days. You know what I mean? Like, and what if it's bad? Well, we priced it for that. You know, that race to the bottom that comes up a lot. The money isn't there. You know, a lot of people say, scaffolders paid a fortune. are we really paid a fortune? Because we're not getting the money electricians get, etc. And they're indoors most of the time. We're outdoors most of the time. If the money's not there, you can't pay the wages. I get that. And, you know, we talked about domestics there. Like, I know someone rings on my bell now, I need a scaffold quote, I'm going to go with the cheapest. So I get that. But why aren't we pushing the agenda more? What can we do to change the bottom of the industry to come up, do you think, and raise its standards? Yes, it's going to cost more money for certain people in houses, etc., but they're still going to need scaffolding. So how do we get the bottom up? Because if you're not in NASC and you're not in the Scaffold Association, you might not even know what a ticket is.
No.
You might not have a scissors card. And yet there's this perception every scaffolder in the country's got a scissors card.
Yeah. I've spoke to scaffolders that don't even know what a ticket is. I walked past them maybe, I don't know, 10 years ago. I was doing a bit of work for Tone. Come past them. I don't know if I jacked. I might have jacked. Might have been on my way home because I jacked. I'm sure it was early. Can't remember now. Or it was night work. One of the two. I remember I had a Tone sweater on, like a jumper. And walked past these blokes and they were putting a scaffold up. I just thought I'd ask them, all right, fellas, you looking for any blokes? Like, rather than me get on the train, I live donkeys miles away from London, rather than me get on the train for 2.5 hours going to London, they're outside my front door basically. So I was like, no, what, you looking for any blokes? And he was like, I said, I've got a scaffold ticket, I've got an advance ticket. And they was like, what's that, mate? And these weren't kids, these were like older blokes. So they would have been in their 50s, like, didn't even know what scaffold ticket was. So I think the perception that everybody in Britain has got a scaffold ticket, it's just not the case. It's just not the case. I think there has to be a yes. You're leading. You govern your two governing bodies or your trade associations, whatever they want to be classed as. Your NASC, your Scaffold Association, maybe to a lesser extent, but they need to really try harder to get or to bring a little bit of prominence to the industry. They need to market the industry more, and they need to really push home that you need to have some pride in what you do. You need to put good work up, you know, and all these other trades, electricians, plumbers, they're classed as tradesmen. Scaffolders are trades, but we're not. You know, we're not classed as tradesmen. That keeps the wages low. I mean, rightly or wrongly, people may not agree, but without scaffolders, bricklayers, roofers, just about anybody else, window fitters, cladders, for some extent, potentially, electricians if you're doing outside work, same with plumbers if you're doing stuff outside. Anybody working at height, anybody has to have the scaffolders come in, put the scaffold up how they want it in the right place, or they can't do their job. You know, I don't know. I mean, I quote a number all the time. I don't know if it's exactly that percentage, but I still go on about 70%. I still say without scaffolders, about 70% of all construction work completely cannot be done. I say construction work, I class infrastructure, maintenance contracts, stuff like that. About 70%. Essentially anything over the height of a bungalow, anything over head height, you know, that's it. You need to have scaffolding to do it. So, and I don't see people like NASC and whatever, I don't see them banging that drum. It's only people like me who bang the drum. And I've got no influence. I'm just, you know, a scaffolder who can't scaffold anymore, who's doing whatever I can to try and put food on the table so my kids can eat. You know, you're in the same position. Because the work simply isn't there for us. No matter how good we may be at our jobs, the positions are just not simply there for us to progress from being a charge hand scaffolder to, or a foreman scaffolder to a supervisor, contracts manager, operations manager, blah, 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 blah. So yeah, it just need a lot more, it needs a lot more effort put in. And not just the powers that be, I think. Sorry if I'm waffling a bit. So I've got him in little mojo now. But we also need a lot more effort from the other scaffolding consultants. You know, the other people that are in a similar position to us. They need to bang that drum a lot more, and they don't. I don't know if I'm going to upset people. Unfortunately, I do, because I speak my mind, and I don't do it to belittle people. You know, I try and be honest. You know, there's a lot of people in scaffolding with a lot of influence who look after Jack. You know, and it's not helping anybody. It's not helping anybody, mate. I don't think.
No. I mean, I think lobbying of government is something that doesn't happen. I think that legislation's in the UK, it's fudged. Everything's guidance, and everyone will tell you, yes, it can be used in a court. Yes, it can. It may not be. You know, people get done for corporate manslaughter, but you don't really see lots of it. But like the legislation itself to put up a scaffold, you know, like, so we're scabs. We all know it's guidance, etc., and you follow it or you don't. That's your decision. But no one's making you follow that guidance. There's no regulation. So the only thing is to have a scaffold inspected. Most people, like, that aren't scaffs, etc., or main contractors, you know, like your small builder, hasn't got a clue, doesn't know what TG20 is, doesn't know that the scaff that's putting the scaffold up has to have a ticket. This happens in schools, hospitals, high streets. You know, the high street, you get a permit, you need £10 million or £20 million or 15, whatever they decide for insurance. You write the design on the back of a fag packet. No one inspects the scaffold when it goes up, and it's just assumed it's safe. And the next thing we know, what we're seeing all across social media, etc., the one in Brighton's just come down, cheated. It's like, it's just chaos. Why is there not a desire for legislation? Why is there not a desire for raising the standards? Now, before all the scaffolders jump on with, oh, mate, I'm earning a living, fuck off type attitude, if the standards were raised and you had to do something properly, the wages will go up. Yeah. You would have to pay for a decent scaffold, so the wages will be there, the bosses would earn more money. Or is it not as simple as that? Is it more complicated? What makes us fudge things?
Laziness. I think there's plenty of money in scaffolding, and the people who, let's upset people, shall we? The people who are making the decisions, they're earning a few quid, and they're earning enough money to not have to worry about putting the effort in. I mean, I don't want to seem like I'm digging anybody, because I'm not. But if you're earning, I don't know, say a tier 1 scaffold company. If you own a tier 1 scaffold company, you are a millionaire. You're not skint. You know, I know they all plead poverty, you know, and I understand more so now than I did when I was on the tools. I understand that there's pressure and there's overheads, and some of these people there owe a lot of money, you know, because there's a lot of these building companies out there, they do use the subcontractors almost as to bankroll their projects, you know. Yeah. But the incentive isn't there, I don't think, for the people who can change the industry quite rapidly if they wanted to. The incentive isn't there because they're already earning a nice amount of money. So why bother? You know, if you're already a millionaire and you're paying yourself, I don't know, X amount of thousands of pounds every 3 months in dividends, and it's all run exactly how you know, like, it's not broke, don't fix it, or we've always done it this way, or there's another way you could probably say it. If they have no desire or they have no need to help get the industry or change the industry into where it should be, why are they going to if they've got no incentive? You know, I think that's pretty much what it comes down to. It's laziness, you know. I mean, my own personal opinion, I've put my whole life into scaffolding. I'm not stupid. I'm not saying scaffolders are stupid, but I'm not stupid. You know, I could have done a number of different other jobs or job roles or been in different positions, and I chose to stay in scaffolding because I like doing it. You know, I was good at it, and I like being good at stuff. You know, and other people might not have that drive. You know, publications I made, I've done them to help as many scaffolders as possible. They're for small to medium scaffold companies that might not have the experience or the personnel or the time to go out and find the information that I put in them publications. Scaffolders might not have the resources, or they might not know these different subjects that I did in them publications. You know, it was my way of trying to give something back to the industry, and people, you know, if they're in the position where they're already doing all right, you know, what's the incentive for them? They haven't got one. So I think that there needs to be a massive drive from everybody in the industry to essentially force change within the industry. But we all have to get behind it. A movement almost, you know.
Well, you have to have a desire for that, don't you?
Yeah.
You and I have tried several different routes in different ways, but we believe the same thing: try and drive the industry on, get more people into it, get the training to a decent level, get the wages up for the scaffolder, get the earnings up for the company. I mean, being the boss of a scaffold firm, you are jack of all trades. No one has taught you how to deal with the VAT, the PAYE. You know, like, you're still working on the tools when you're starting out. And let's be honest, right? Most firms start with transits. If you're lucky, it's a 7.5 ton lorry. It might be a pickup even, or a van. And then we're bashing the transit bandit, as everyone calls them in the UK, the hatred of the small firm. But most firms started as a small firm.
Yeah.
You know, unless you've been lucky enough to be a second generation scaffolder and you've inherited the firm, or you're a rich businessman that's bought a scaffold firm to supplement your construction company or whatever. Mm-hmm. You know, so we all start at the bottom, as it were. We build up, but there isn't the support for the small company. What there is a lot of the time is their crap. Bash the transit bandit. Let's. But if you haven't educated them, you haven't made. You know, like having a website with guidance on and stuff like that, like you've got, it's great. But if I don't know it's on your website, how do I know what the guidance is? Then, even if the guidance is there, I've got to read it. Mm-hmm. You know, it's almost like you don't have people out in public going, hi, yeah, like, here's the guidance. I don't know, do you hand it out on the street? do you push the councils, get the councils to accept, because they're government. The councils are government, we know that. That's almost legislation. Now, NASCA, you know, tried, right or wrong, to do things like that. I know people then go, oh, it's a big boys club, they're trying to have a cartel. We've got, at some point, all come together and try and drive the standards up. The safety is just lip service sometimes. You and I know that. We go to sites and stuff. Some are amazing, some aren't. Yeah? Some scaffolders want to learn, some don't. I get that. But without a proper, clear agenda, I can't see how the UK is going to save scaffolding almost and move on. I keep saying we have to evolve. We have to evolve together. We can't just all have our own agendas and you're rubbish and I'm great isn't going to work.
No. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm still hopeful. I try and be a hopeful person. Try and have a little bit of optimism. I'm still hopeful that at some point, I mean, even a lot of scaffolders, you get the scaffolders are like, oh yeah, my kid will never be a scaffolder, you know. But you've got a lot of people in the industry where it is a little bit of, I wouldn't say there's definitely nepotism that goes on with the business owners. 100% there's that happens. Rightly or wrongly, you know, you want to look after your kids. And if you've got a successful business, it's not just scaffolding, every single business going. Like, if you've got the opportunity to bring it, I would have done it. No, if Virtus, my first little baby, if that would have took off, if COVID would never have happened, it would have been a resounding success. You know, I'd be wearing a different T-shirt now. I would have brought both my kids in. But yeah, I mean, I think a big thing of it as well is, as you say, guidance. You know, so I say, I mean, the amount of people I speak to, I get loads of messages and that from people who've got scaffold companies and that, and I speak to them and stuff. And scaffold tickets, guidance, it's not a legal requirement, you know, TG, guidance. There's very few things in scaffolding that are actually law. I think there needs to be a big push to make TG law. You know, I support NASC, you know, because that's the best we've got. Is their guidance perfect? No, but there's nothing else that can come close to it. Yeah, I mean, I don't know going about the Scaffold Association. They've been going for, 10, 15 years. They've done that. Nothing, apart from a few little bits they've brought out. They've not done anything to lobby Parliament. They're not skint. They've got the money to do it. And I would upset people with this one, but I'm only telling the truth. Yeah, I mean, so NASC is the best we've got. I'm anything but a NASC fanboy, you know, but it should be law. To put scaffolding up, you should have to have a license, whether that's a NASC affiliated license. Scaffold ticket should be law, and I think TG should be law. And I think that will help regulate the industry. It will help regulate the training. I think that would go a long way, along with a concerted effort to bang the drum. You know, that scaffolding is more than just a load of fucking gorillas that drink too much, slapping a load of shit up against the wall, because there's far more to it than that. We're artists, really, you know. Once upon a time, and you're older than me, so it'd be the same for you, we didn't have designs. You know, we get told, like, put that job up, make it pucker. Okay? You put the job up, you make it the bollocks. Designer would come out, take a load of photos, do a load of measurements, and then you get the design after you've already put the last toe board on. You know, it takes skill to do that. But yeah, that's my fault anyway.
We'll put a pin in that because we'll be here all day talking about like legislation and moving it on.
At ANC Scaffolding Products, we are dedicated to raising the standard in scaffolding solutions across the UK. With decades of industry experience, we supply fully certified scaffolding systems and components, tailored to meet the needs of every project, large or small. We sell scaffolding. We offer the best quality and amazing prices. Trust ANC for expert advice, reliable service, and products that keep you safe and on schedule. As proud NASC members, safety and quality are at the heart of everything we do. Credit available. Look us up on the web or call today.
DEFCON 1.
something we've spoken about before. You know, I know Movember and everything, and like mental health's very important to me. I've realised that scaffolders, big roughy tufty lads, are suffering. I think there's a lot of people suffering. You know, society can be depressing. Let's face it. I don't want to go off on that one, but there's a lot of problems, and there's a lot of lip service for mental health. We have a mental health day. Everybody posts all over social media. Everybody loves it. Mental health week or month. Oh my God, rub your hands. What happens the rest of the year is what I'm a week, because they just seem to drop people. So, and we all have dark days. The black dog has visited in my life. You know, like I've had days where I've been depressed. I'm very lucky to be old and near the end of my life, and sort of I've got mechanisms to cope, and I'm actually living a good life in here. Do you know what I mean? I haven't got the best life financially, but then who does? You know, you can never have enough money. But I speak to people, and you've got the influence of drugs, drink, gambling. There are addictions, you know. Like, and I'm not saying it's scaffolders, right? The whole of construction, the whole of society, people have addictions, right? Before everyone jumps on the bandwagon of where they're all on cocaine and drunk because they're scaffolders. But what I find frustrating again, training, etc., apprenticeships. We've got bits of it. Where's the mental health support in that? Where's the proper counselling, or maybe people just chatting? You know, like Andy Mann's Club, Movember, fantastic. Oh, it's just so frustrating for me. But, you know, like, I know you've got views on mental health. So, like, what's the answer? Well, there isn't one answer, but...
I think potentially from my own experience, so let's give you a little bit of insight what happened to me. So I moved out onto site. I was a kid. I wasn't even 18, just before I was 18. Got thrown out of site, no support. And I got beasted, man. I got beasted. Like getting screamed at for wearing a pair of gloves on the right wheel. I used to have to sellotape plasters to my fingers. And because I come out the office, this is my own little story, because I come out the office, I was known as Jay the Grass. I was a kid, you know. I wasn't there to grass anybody. I wasn't there to check up and make sure anybody was doing anything. I went from being in the office to a scaffold labourer, completely out of my comfort zone. A boy, you know. We might as well have been fresh out of school, essentially. That first 18, 20 months of my working experience, I was just in the office, you know, and did a little bit out on site for Edgeguard. Went out on site, got annihilated, headbutted, spat at. People grabbed me around the neck, throwing me on the floor. Yeah, I was a mouthy little shit, but you know, you don't expect to have full-grown 40-year-old men walking up to you and like fucking wiping bogies on the side of your face when you're trying to eat your breakfast. So yeah, I weren't happy about things like that. So I got involved with quite a bad crowd, and we would spend every Friday night, every Saturday night sniffing gear, right? And it got hold of me. I couldn't get out of it, and there was no support for that, you know. And I leaned on these blokes, all had their own issues. They're a little bit older than me. I leaned on them for that kind of support, you know. And then when I was on site, the bullying, as it was, it stopped, because they were mean, you know. They were big, angry bastards, basically. And I was part of their little clique, and they looked after me, you know. I was just like, you know, no, you're coming with us now, you know. And I think potentially not everyone's gone through that, whatever the word is, but the hardships and the nature of scaffolding, it's a very, very stressful job. You know, if you're working up and you're building a scaffold, you're putting a fan over a busy road. Yeah, you've got your exclusion zones. Sometimes you haven't, depending what company you're on, what setup they've got. You know, you drop a fit in, boom, 60 foot, 100 foot, comes down, fitting hits someone, they're dead. You know, you're fuck-arsing around on fans, big fans. Oh, stop that. Yeah, you're fuck-arsing around on fans. You're trying to put your spurs in, 16-foot tubes sometimes. You drop that tube, you know, it's national news. Like, you're in a lot of trouble. Working in all weathers, all throughout the year. I think there's the pressure of the job without the support structure in place can really take its toll mentally on a lot of scaffolders. It's almost like you get PTSD nearly. And then obviously I've gone out about a few times, the Monday Club. You know, is the Monday Club just because someone's being lazy, or is there a more deeper reason why it's happening? You know, do scaffolders, you know, you'd say the same for bricklayers, all the physically demanding jobs, steel fixers, roofers, the hard man jobs, you know, ground workers, do they not come in on a Monday morning, and are they sniffing and drinking on a Sunday at 10 o'clock at night because they can't bear the thought of having to go through what they've gone through the previous week? Is it a coping mechanism? Potentially, I think there is. I think it is a coping mechanism. And I think a lot more needs to be done. You've got Lighthouse, charity, do what they can. But I think, again, the industry in general needs to work harder. And like you're saying about the foreign scaffolders, they support each other. British scaffolders, we don't support each other. We don't. You know, we take the piss out of each other, which is fine. You can call it banter. That's fine. But there comes a time where banter becomes more than that. Becomes spiteful, you know. Becomes out of order sometimes. So I think scaffolders need to support each other more. Ultimately, if you're putting amps on, you know, or you're putting a puncheon on some beamwork, you know, generally there's two of you doing it, you know, and you're kind of like guiding it in, and you know, someone's maybe, or if you're hanging over, so someone's, you know, shouldn't happen, but it does. You're hanging over doing up, I don't know, you've got tie bars going in, you're putting your handrails around a flat roof, someone's holding on to your harness or your belt as you hang over. You do have to rely on the people you work with. You know, you have to put your life sometimes is in their hands. So there should be a mental health support structure in scaffolding, and scaffolders also should really be looking after each other.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, banter's not as much as it was. Whether you think it's positive or not, banter it depends, doesn't it? I mean, like you say, it goes to different levels. But I mean, some of the fun, as it were, has almost gone out of scaffolding sometimes, because you can't. You get people complaining for talking on site. Do you know what I mean? They're shouting at each other across the site, swearing and trying to knock the bricky out. Yeah, I get that. Stop all that. That's not banter or anything. But I mean, some sites are so regimental now that people talking to each other while they're working, it's almost like that's not allowed. Are they working hard enough? They've spoken to each other for 5 minutes, you know, like. But people in offices talk to each other all day long. That's acceptable. It's almost like we're regimenting construction. Yes, sometimes the language can be a bit choice, and I get that. And if you're working on a block of flats, it's residential, you do have to think about the people in the flats and stuff like that. And shouting down, you know, 10 lifts, oi, get in it. Yeah, it's not great. Look, we've got technology to get round that with walkie-talkies or whatever. They're not amazing, but they work, you know, or even hand signals. But I think almost that you go in canteens and people aren't talking in the morning. They're sitting there with a coffee and their bowl of oatmeal or whatever and worrying about, like, paying the bills, and they're not talking to each other. Like, you used to just sit in a canteen or in a lorry on the way to work, and like, you'd have a bit of laugh and whatever. What'd you do at the weekend, blah, blah. And occasionally someone would go, oh, yeah, it was really crap at the weekend. My wife left me. Oh, sorry about that, mate. And then but you wouldn't necessarily like, oh my God, what do I do? But you would have a conversation. You would make sure they're all right. And those conversations, I don't think they're happening as much. And I think people are a bit more stranded. And there's people, financial worry is a big thing. And it's it's building all the time. People, I mean, credit cards, etc., they're getting themselves into massive debt, etc., can't get themselves out. And then that adds to stress. They might miss a couple of days because they just can't handle it. They can't get, and then they're in a bigger position of debt, and it just all snowballs. But there's no one ever sort of going, hi, would you like a chat? Do you know, I don't know. Do you almost have to have, I don't know, very large scale tier one sites? There's a bloke who on a Monday and a Tuesday comes in and is the mental health first aider that walks around the site with a big green cross on his back with mental health on it, and he goes to a private room. And or would it be that if that happened, everyone would take the mickey out of the bloke walking to to go and see him? Do you know what I mean? It is a very difficult position, but we do need to start having a few more conversations and trying to help people, because it is a crisis. It does worry me, you know, like the cyberbullying. You've had cyberbullying when you were younger on Scaffolders Forum. We talked about it. I mean, like, do you want to discuss that? Because you had your own YouTube channel years before other people. You know, you were doing things to get scaffolding out there. What made you stop? What was going on? You know, what was affecting you by doing that? You know, because to me it sounds like a positive. What were your thoughts on it? What happened?
But potentially, I was the first one. Potentially, one of very, very few, maybe even the first one. So I was on the Scaffolders Forum. I ended up transferring across. Essentially, I left Scaffolders Forum straight across to LinkedIn because, rightly or wrongly, yes, if you go on LinkedIn, I'm all over there at the moment. But there is a support structure in place for people that are just being a cunt. Scaffolders Forum, not so much. It was like the Wild West. So I went on the Scaffolders Forum because I've always wanted to. Everything I do, and even now, what I'm doing now, everything I do, I'm not happy with how things are. I'm always trying to improve. I'm always trying to see how good and how better I can be at something. Ultimately, you know, it is all about money, you know. So I thought I'd go on the Scaffolders Forum with all good intentions. I went on there very, very naively, and I still think I'm probably naive now with certain things. But everyone was on there, base plate 25, real name's Fred or whatever, you know. Some other geezer was called Cup 5 or whatever bollocks. They all had, what's the word? Not acronyms, but they had, it wasn't their real names. So I was on there as Jason Gibbs, and I had my own photo on there. At the bottom of my signature, again, I started off on computers. I didn't grow up with computers. I had 18 odd months, less than that, doing bits in the office, probably quite a bit, probably less than that. But I've always sort of tinkered around and played around with them. At the bottom of my signature, I had an interactive CV that linked through to my YouTube channel. It's long gone now, with all the different jobs I was on. And I got ripped to fucking pieces, man. I got ripped to shreds. It's just out of jealousy. I weren't muggy in these videos. I won't give them the big one. I just get my little phone. I go, hello, this is where we are today. We've done this little scaffold over this hole, and this is one of them I did Charing Cross train station. Put these 16-foot ladder beams. You couldn't use 21s because you physically couldn't break them in. It's too heavy. We had this little hatch to go through. 16-foot ladder beams across, and it didn't fit anyway. Platforms, so somebody could get up and do a bit of welding on like an air vent that went all above Charing Cross train station. Little video of that. This is 2-3 minutes, not edited, just me with my phone. This is what we're doing today. This is what we've done. I went with these fellas. Blah 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 blah. And I hope you all have a good day and stay safe. And da da da. That was the video, and I got ripped to fucking pieces for them. So I had a big hurrah. I had lots and lots of online battles with people on the Scaffolders Forum. Funny enough, you meet these people in real life, and they very, 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 very quickly change their tune to how they speak and act around you. Why not just be like that anyway? I don't know. But, maybe not from a scaffolding point of view, but so from mental health in general, social media is a big problem because it's fake. It's just complete horseshit. You know, everyone, you go on social media, you go on LinkedIn, everyone, maybe not now because it's a political minefield on there now, and I'm part of that, but you go on social media, everyone's perfect, everyone's doing all right, everyone's got the best car, everyone's smashing it, everyone's got all nice holidays. In reality, it's credit cards, you know, and it's a lot of waffle and a lot of bollocks. And generally, I think people are kind of envious of other people. I try and distance myself from that shit now. If you're doing really well, great. If you're not doing really well, I don't know, try and do well. I can't really, you know, I can't solve the problems of all the world, but there is a lot of jealousy and a lot of the green-eyed monster comes out. And then obviously, if someone's doing really well and people ain't doing well, they then start to doubt themselves. Are they good enough? You know, blah, 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 blah. So social media is good in a way. I don't want to get into the politics stuff because we can save that for another video. But it's good in a way that it helps to get the information out there that the media, the actual media, doesn't want to show people, which is pretty much what my little crusade at the moment on LinkedIn. I'm trying to show people what's really going on that the BBC and whatever don't show you. But on the other side, social media also can really ruin people's mental health because it's almost like a competition. You know, oh, they've got a better car than me. Like, rather than seeing a nice car going down the road and go, oh, that's a nice car, you're just having it rammed in your face 24/7, shoved down your throat, that X amount of the population are doing really, really well and you're not. And I think that has a massive impact on people's mental health. And just the fact you've got your phone in your face all day, you know, you see scaffolders and like that. Like you said about people talking in the canteen. Once upon a time, you'd see scaffolders and they'd be doing a crossword or they'd be reading a book. Now it's like that. And the problem with the youngsters coming into the game is they can't put their phones in their fucking pockets, you know. When I had my little labour-only company, the amount of labourers that we'd have, and I'd be on the scaffold, shut down to them, put your fucking phone away, because they'd be pulling up on a rope and wheel, one-handed. And it's like, what are you doing? Like, so I think social media, for all its positives, there are a lot of negatives that go with it as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm on social media. You're on most people are on social media. I'm doing this. This is a podcast on YouTube. I get it. Yes, I do see negatives. My own youngest, the two youngest, I don't want them on social media. Me, if there was an under-16s ban on social media, yes, I'd vote for it straight away. I think Australia's done the right thing there. A lot of people are going to say freedom of speech, blah, blah. I just think it's very uncontrolled. The algorithm, if you accidentally, I mean, you can accidentally watch a video, think, what the hell was that? Go on. It will think because you watched that video, you liked it, 10 more will appear, 20 more because you've watched 3 of them, 100 more. Your feed can be filled full of, I don't know, like randomly, sheep shearing. Right, I'm not going to go for the negative. I've watched one video on sheep shearing, whatever. 7 days later, all these algorithms on Facebook or Instagram or whatever have decided that I like sheep shearing. You know, that's not a bad, but if that's a death cult or that's, you know, horrible to say, but like how to kill yourself videos and stuff like that, wow. Especially for young people, they're little sponges. They're taking that information in, and it's absorbed quicker than reading a book. You know, visuals with funky music, and it's someone showing you how to order something on the internet to remove yourself. My God, what a crazy world we live in. So yeah, social media. I think it's a fad. I pray to God it's not going to last forever. You know, for 200 years, we're all still doing social media and it's through a chip in our head. My God, the world's a bit knackered, but, you know. It's scaffolding, it's construction, it's the whole of life. We all walk around with phones and we're all using them for anything and everything. You know, like probably the least thing you use it for nowadays is actually to speak to someone.
Yeah.
Mini computers.
Essentially, yeah. Well, they reckon that your iPhone has got more processing power than the computers that allegedly sent the rockets to the moon. You know, you've got more power in your phone.
Yeah, my washing machine has.
Yeah.
Yeah, my washing machine probably has. There's about 20 seconds on that thing and I can't use it.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So, yeah, I get it, and technology's moved on. Life's got the other problem with that. So if you bring that back to scaffolding, technology's moved on. Scaffolding doesn't move on. Like you've mentioned there, wheel and rope.
Yeah.
Like the Egyptians were pulling up stones with wheel and rope. We're using wheel and rope. What are we doing? You know? Teaching people to tie off. That's a great idea, but there's mechanical devices. They're called winches, hoists, lifts. I've said it before. I know domestic work, etc., you might not be able to afford to have a hoist on the job. That's common sense. But winches and stuff on tower blocks, you've got people pulling up 20 lifts.
Yeah.
Like a long one, 20 lifts they're trying to pull up. And then they wonder why on Wednesday the labourer's not in on Thursday.
Yeah.
Well, that's probably because he's knackered.
Yeah.
Especially if he's young, his body's still developing. You know, you can't just go and become a bodybuilder or a powerlifter. There's years to build up and dedication. But like in scaffolding, we're just like, oh yeah, just throw him on the rope. You know, and then wonder why people's bodies are damaged, why people drop out of the industry. You know, there's so many reasons, but one of the reasons is it's hard work. And it doesn't have to be as hard as we make it.
No.
We haven't moved on.
No. We've always done it this way, is what you hear all the time. See, I mean, I've put various posts online saying that the youngsters nowadays, they're from a different time. I was from a different time to people the previous generation, you know, stuff that they would have done back in the day. Trainers, yeah, I've worn trainers putting scaffolding up and baseball caps and that, but for the majority of the time, my work remained consistent, my PPE remained consistent, which is what I try and say to people. The reason why I hold myself in quite high regard as a scaffolder, because my work was consistent. How I worked was consistent. You know, Monday I could work on a power station. Tuesday I could work on a railway job. Wednesday I could work on a street job. My PPE was generally the same. My consistency, my work ethic, the standard of work was generally the same. You know, but yes, I have worn trainers and that sort of stuff. Generations before me, it was just how it was. You know, I mean, I would never slide down a dropper with a piece of rope stuck to my belt that's hooked through my jeans as my full protection. But the kids or people coming in, or the newer or the younger generations, they're different to us. So the industry has to evolve and change to suit the next generation of labour. Otherwise, they're not going to want to do it. You know, wages have to go up. Wages have to be, and you could argue there's no money in scaffolding. There's lots of money in scaffolding if people are smart with how they use their money. You know, another little saying I like saying, you've got lots of companies out there, they will spend £1 to save 50p, which means they've lost 50p. You know, it's rather than being wise with their resources. Case in point, I was helping run a little scaffold company during COVID. Street work, he had like council contracts in Shepherd's Bush. I won't say the name of the firm. Not a bad little firm. He run it like a sergeant major. He was very regimental on how he wanted the jobs doing. They got quite neat work. He was quite hard on the blokes. Like, that's got to be done today. It's got to be done like that. You know, but it did work for him. But I remember ringing him up one morning. I won't say the name of the company, but I say his name, John. I was like, all right, John. I said, we've got no tyres, mate. He's like, oh, fuck it. Like, we'll go and take the job down. I was like, no, we've got to put the job up first, yeah? So we've got no tyres. And he would not spend the money to buy, bearing in mind, against my advice, he was using the Hilti rings. Not the Hilti rings, sorry, the Excalibur rings. No, the single-use rings where you only meant to use them once with the little Excalibur thread. He was using them over and over and over and over. I know it happens. So he wouldn't buy these. I'm not buying any more. They're like £8 each. I'm not spending any more money. Over the Easter period, I come back to the yard. He's had all these mats put around the yard. So he's got an actual walkway. You can walk on the ground. It was fine. It was all like hardcore, but it was crushed flat with a roller. But now you could park your car and you can walk on these mats around. £7,000. It's like, mate, you don't need them. You need fucking ties for your jobs, because this Shepherd's Bush contract is the only work you've got. One of them jobs comes over, you're done. Nope. So, yeah, getting back to it anyway. So the we've always done it this way is a massive problem in scaffolding, and unless the industry evolves to at least meet halfway with the new generation of scaffolders or people coming into the industry, it's another problem it's also going to kill the industry. Because these kids nowadays, they don't want to graft their bollocks off. You know, they don't want to end up like me, like yourself, you know, just smashed to pieces, broken. You know, broken physically and broken mentally, where it's had such an impact on our lives. You know, the fact that you wipe your arse, your arm's hurting. You know what I mean? Can't do push-ups anymore. No chance. I'm even getting to the stage now I'm driving around in my little van and I'm now, my hands are starting to seize up. It's through changing gear and holding the steering wheel. You're the same with your legs, you know? So...
yeah, I have it in my hands as well, so my hands turn into a hook depending on the temperature. You know, if it's freezing cold, snowing, etc. Yeah, they lock literally. I mean, I'm actually rubbing my hand now because this is hurting in here suddenly for some reason as we're talking. So, yeah, you know, it's not all scaffolding. You know, I was crushed by a lorry. I think that quite happily accelerated the problem. But I also see scaffolders in their 30s, 40s now. You know, I know quite a few. Backs are starting to go. We still got the same problems. And some of them are in the gym. They're still in, and they're really training, and they're really trying to keep their careers going. And you think it's still not working. You know, like you're still wheel and rope. Like I said, there's aluminium products out there now. Like some of the systems. Like I tried one at Scaffex I showed you. Mental, loved it. Yes, it costs a lot of money, but it's going to be quicker. It's going to prolong the career of the scaffolder. And it's like some firms have banned 21s. So people who don't know, 21-foot long tube, heavy. You know, that's for tube and fitting. Some people have banned them, some haven't. Again, we don't have a joined-up thinking process. We don't have legislation or anything. We used to have Youngman's board. We got rid of them. They were 16-foot bolts and stuff. We got rid of them. Because we got rid of unit beams, pretty much, with new technology. There's bits we've done, but we don't do enough. And we don't promote it through training. We don't train the latest and greatest ways to do things. You know, like if you go and do a course or an apprenticeship, there's no input on how to use a hoist or why you would use a hoist, or even when you're doing a tower block, the hoist's coming in, the customer's not paying till the end. But if you use that for 3 weeks to get the 20 floors up, you're ahead of the game. You know, like we're not teaching stuff like that, and that frustrates me. You know, and again, that leads to stress. That leads to mental health issues with certain people, not everyone. But the wear and tear on the body, the physical strike, it's just ludicrous. Yeah. It is ludicrous.
Guns are done.
You need a joined up thinking.
Yeah. I think the impact wrenches, the guns, they've done just as much damage to the industry as what they've done good. I mean, again, I've done publications on it. I've spoken about it multiple times. You have as well. Your ears, the noise damage that guns are going to do to scaffolders' ears, it's going to be fucking horrendous. You know, it's going to be an epidemic. There's going to be scaffolders walking around in their 60s who have had guns. I held on as long as I could because I was proud, and I was like, you know what, I'm a proper scaff. And you can't compete speed-wise. So I held on as long as possible. But there's some scaffolders, I've worked with scaffolders that have never used a spanner. They've got one. I say they've never used it, they've used it, but they don't just go for their spanner, they go for their gun, you know, and if they'll do everything. I've seen younger scaffolders where they're doing everything they can to try and get their gun in and, you know, don't fit. Just use your spanner. And they get their spanner and they're all clumsy with it. And them blokes are going to be fucked. No, they're the ones who are going to have serious hearing problems. Yeah, I think the impact wrenches, the way they was introduced into the industry as well, yeah, you know, it was done in completely the wrong way. You know, rather than get the impact wrenches to put more work up and do less, it then become a competition to who could smash the fuck out of it as quickly as possible, as fast as show off and be as far, I'm the bollocks, look how much I can put up. You have a gun, like when you're using a spanner, you know, you could barely put an house front up in a day. All of a sudden now you've got a gun, you're putting tower blocks up, you're the best scaffold the world's ever seen. But unfortunately, the only one who done all right out of it was the people who own the scaffold companies. And when they first come out, the impact wrenches, I know of a few companies where the people who own the companies were going out and buying 30 or 40 impact wrenches at a time and giving them to their blokes because they knew they could get 2-3 times the amount of work out of them in the same time period. So again, you could probably argue it's the bravado, it's the I'm a scaff, you know, it's that macho-ness that has again been a negative on the industry. But yeah, it needs
yeah. I mean, guns. There's not actually any guidance. You know, like we've discussed guidance in the UK, and is it law, is it not? No one's got a clue about impacts. Like what torque, why you should torque test your fittings, and when your battery's low, your torque's not right, blah, 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 going deaf. You know, and all you ever hear, if anything, on one of the bigger sites with the main contract, HABs. How many fittings you got to do for that HAB? And yet, with all, you see it now, tube and fitting, right? It's a system, it's not the same. You don't go around cutting it. The recips, utterly mad. They've got holsters where they're cutting the tube. The vibrations through the roof. We are doing ties now. The ties, one lad will do 10 ties in a day. That's where you need to look at the HABs. But then, deafness with the gun, it's just nuts. It's nuts. And to be I'm going to play devil's advocate as usual. Scaffold boss, how many nuts and washers is he buying? How many old ladies in their rose bed are picking them back out? We had the one with the auto stop. Now a lot of them haven't got auto stop. Everyone's using different makes. Impact guns are just being ignored, and I think they're being ignored for a reason, because there are issues with them, and I think people have ignored them for far too long. You know, like I think, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I think NASC is supposed to be bringing out with some guidance on the guns, etc. I think it's under development, etc. Let's have a look at it. You know what I mean? But risk assessments, everything, like people are just making it up because they're just copying everyone else's. No one's really looked into it. A couple of firms did. A couple of firms banned them. There's a couple of firms where you're not supposed to use a gun. You can only use a spanner still because they weren't happy with them, blah, blah. No one really talks about it. And then on the flip of that, though, where everyone's got a gun, you go on the courses in the UK and you can't use a gun.
No. And offshore, unless they've changed things.
Because of the noise.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the noise, because it's indoors. It's like, so if you can't use it at a training centre because of the noise, how can we use them on site? Because of it, how is that allowed?
Yeah.
It's madness.
Yeah. So yeah, there's multiple issues, mate. There's multiple issues.
Yeah, and yet the British are the best. You know, like it's a strange attitude. It's a very strange attitude.
Power flows to the one who knows how. Desire alone is not enough.
DEFCON 1.
DEFCON 1.